everyone, it's me again, Brittany, and I'm here today to film my long-awaited book haul. I have 41 books to show you guys today, and I really don't want to make this intro too long because it's going to take me a while to talk about all of these. I do want to mention I'm not going to be giving very thorough summaries. I might not even be giving some summaries for most of them, but I will be linking all of the books down below for you guys to check them out. I'm also going to try and link videos where I might have talked about the books. I don't know, it's gonna take a while to do all the linking, but I swear I'll try and do it. There's tons of books to show you guys today. I've actually been accumulating them ever since my last book haul, so it has been over the course of a few months. It's not like I've been buying that many books, but there were just a couple of big purchases, and that's where we're at today. I'm not even sure if these are all the books that I have acquired over the past few months, but it's most of them, so we're just gonna talk about them. I did kind of try and split everything up into categories like contemporary, fantasy, urban, things like that, to try and give it a little bit more flow, but I really don't. I don't know. Let's just do it. Let's just get into this. So the first category I'm going to talk about today is fantasy, because fantasy tends to be the one that I know best, you know, so I might as well just start with that and hope to give as good of summaries as I can. So the first book is going to be Language of Thorns by Leigh Bardugo. I already read this book. I actually really enjoyed it. This is a collection of short stories from the Grishaverse, which basically is just the universe that Leigh Bardugo writes in, and they're sort of fairy tales, and I feel like they're definitely influenced by fairy tales that we have just in our real world, and there is just beautiful artwork throughout it. I definitely made a note of marking all of the art because it is just so stunning, and it was really entertaining. I will say that my rating ended up being like a 3.5 stars just because there were stories that just didn't do it for me. Two of them, and one of them was a really long one, just wasn't exactly what I wanted out of it, but most of them were really interesting and entertaining. The first story was my absolute favorite. It was the one that I feel like was the most original at the end of the day. So I do recommend this. You don't need it for the Grisha universe, but I'm happy I read it. That way I can reread the Shadow and Bone series eventually, and then read Six of Crows, and then finally get to King of Scars. You don't have to do that. You don't have to reread all of the books, but I'm being a little crazy about it for whatever reason, and I haven't read King of Scars because of that. So, Language of Thorns. This next one I actually do not know much about. This was definitely a cover buy for me, and I don't do very many of those, so let's just talk about it. It's The Boneless Mercies by April Genevieve Tuchok. Let's just read you the thing because I really don't know anything about this book. Trained warriors kill loudly, we kill silently, and that is how you hunt a beast. That's the excerpt. Frey yearns for a life worthy of a saga and song, but she is a boneless mercy, a member of an ancient female sect that has survived the rising and falling of kingdoms. Mercies are death traders doomed to roam Vorsland, killing the old and the sick for meager pay. Kind of like Scythe in a weird way. Their methods are quiet, even merciful, yet wherever their work leads them, their daggers inspire unease. Frey and her band of mercies, Ovi, Runa, and Juniper, are weary of the death trade and dream of a bigger life. So when Frey hears that a beast is slaughtering people in a northern jarldom, she decides that slaying the creature is the mercy's chance at fame and fortune, even if it means they must align with the reclusive sea witches and face the ruthless cut queen of the Red Willow Marsh. This actually sounds really interesting. I'm glad I bought it. I love the concept of them actually just being merciful killers, where they go around to sick people or dying people and end their lives in a merciful way, and I love that they want more for themselves and they're trying to find a beast and kill this beast. So I'm really intrigued. I'm very glad I got this, and the cover is stunning, which is what drew me in originally. So, and there's a wolf. I'm a big wolf fan. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about this next book. I have been wanting to buy this ever since I finished the first book in the series, and that is gonna be The Caged Queen by Kristen Cicerelli. This is the second book in the Last Namsara series, and I am just so excited. First book in the series ended up being one of my favorite books of 2018. At the moment, I really believe that it's gonna be one of my new favorite series. There are dragons in this, and it is just a very touching way, and the overall mythology in this book is really fascinating. I love what they did with it. I love the complexities of it, and I love that it is still a very big part of the world in this book. So the first book followed Asha, who believes herself to be an Iskari, and Iskari is probably one of the most hated and dark figures in their mythology. She is also the princess to her kingdom and will do basically anything for her father, the king. But when she embarks on a different journey and learns more about the Namsara and learns more about the world around her and learns more about the dragons that she is so eager to kill, she learns that maybe she wasn't the Iskari that everyone had made her out to be. The way that the dragons were written in the first book was probably one of my favorite parts. I love the connection that you really feel to all of the characters. Everyone just had such complexities, and they were amazing. So I'm really excited about the second book because I can already tell it's gonna be amazing. Next up I have Sight Witch by Susan Dennard. This is actually a novella in the Truth Witch series. I'm really excited. I read Truth Witch earlier this year and Truth Witch was absolutely amazing. I really didn't think that I would fall as much in love with that story as I did, but lo and behold, we're here, and I bought the novella even though I haven't read the second book yet because I just know that I'm gonna need this in my life. This next one is We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faizal. I am really excited about this. I don't know too much about it. I just know that it's an amazing new fantasy and that there's like a badass character and there's kind of like a hate to love situation happening, and that's really all I needed to know before picking it up. Again, I really just don't know too much about this book. I will definitely leave it linked down below though because I've heard very amazing things about this. I haven't actually heard one bad review yet. And it is Hafsa's debut novel. She actually has a pin shop, which is super cool, and I've loved her pins for a really long time, so love that she made a book. Next up is A Reaper at the Gates by Sabaa Tahir. I actually read this earlier this year, and that is shocking because I really didn't want to read this book after I finished A Torch Against the Night, and that's an unpopular opinion. I've heard many times that people loved An Ember in the Ashes and loved A Torch Against the Night, and then when they got to A Reaper at the Gates, they disliked the story a lot. But I had a very opposing view of it. I loved An Ember in the Ashes. I forced my way through A Torch Against the Night, and when I listened to A Reaper at the Gates on audio, I fell absolutely in love with it. I love that all these characters are having so much strife, and I love to see them go through it and see what they're gonna do about it, and I like the way the world is changing. There is a lot more magic in A Reaper at the Gates than there ever was in An Ember in the Ashes, and I just think it's very fascinating. I really love Helene too. She doesn't have as big of a role in the first book, but she is a big player in the third one, and I just think that she is so fascinating and ruthless and cunning, but she is doing everything for the people around her, and I can respect that. Next is Four Dead Queens by Astrid Schultz. This is another book that I have already read. I really enjoyed this. It is sort of a mystery fantasy novel. Kadara is split into 4 segments to keep everything separate but still have power. They are not allowed to really interact with each other, and items from different quadrants aren't allowed in each other's quadrants. But Kara Lee wants more for that, and she is a criminal that deals in kind of selling different segments items to the one that she currently lives in. But when she steals a package from Varen, who is a messenger coming from the castle, she finds herself wrapped up in a bigger scheme that has more to do with her than she could have ever guessed, and it has to do with the 4 queens of Kadara. So she and Varen are then forced to kind of team together and potentially save the quadrant or potentially ruin the quadrant because their goals are very different. I did really enjoy this. I do recommend it, and I think that it is a really fast read. These next 2 books kind of go together because it's the exact same book, and that's gonna be Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I have not read this book yet, but I have already anticipated that I'm going to fall so much in love with it that I'm gonna need all the special editions that I can get my hands on. This is the Owl Crate exclusive edition, and this is the Fairy Loot exclusive edition with the glittery edges. I'm really excited to read this. We follow Elizabeth, who is hoping to become a warden, which is sort of like a librarian of their world, and wardens in their world have to look over the books in libraries and make sure that these grimoires don't come alive. Because books are not just books, and each one of them has their own power and their own story to tell. But when one of the most powerful grimoires is released, and a monster therefore comes out of it, she has to work together with Nathaniel, who is a sorcerer, and she doesn't actually like sorcerers, but he's her only hope if she's ever going to clear her name. And on this journey, she tends to find that maybe sorcerers aren't as bad as she always thought, and that maybe magic isn't as terrible as it may seem, because maybe she has some magic of her own. I'm really excited to read this. I loved Margaret Rogerson's previous book, An Enchantment of Ravens, and I just already know I'm going to fall in love with the story. She just has a very beautiful way of writing, and I can't wait to see how she does this. I like the idea of books being more than just books. I feel like every reader can kind of relate to feeling like a book has a story to tell on a shelf. This next one I don't know much about, but I'm really excited. I have this copy, and it is Crown of Feathers by Nikki Palpretto. This is also the Owl Crate exclusive edition with the black background and the dusty mauve sprayed edges. I don't know much about this. I do actually have the ARC for this book and never got around to reading it, which don't hate me, Rhiannon, I'm sorry. I just am really excited though about it because it has to do with phoenixes and phoenix riders, which is a concept that I've never really heard of done in books. Obviously we know much about the phoenix, the bird that's born from its own ashes, but we don't really see them them depicted as dragons. And I feel like that's kind of like the same area that this is going in. It's Phoenix riders are similar to dragon riders. So I can't wait to actually get to this. I feel like I want to read it this month too, so hopefully I will. And I love the tagline, I am a daughter of death, from the ashes I rose like a phoenix from the pyre. And these next two also kind of go together because they're in a series, and that's gonna be Finale by Stephanie Garber, and I held up the wrong one. And that's gonna be Legendary by Stephanie Garber and Finale, also by Stephanie Garber. This is the second and third book in the Caraval trilogy. This is the fancy Fairy Loot exclusive edition with the super fancy sprayed edges and the super fancy cover, and it's just freaking stunning. I really actually want to go ahead now and get the UK versions of Caraval and Legendary because they match better with this copy. I have already read Legendary, I have not gotten yet to Finale, but yeah, I loved Caraval. I think that the kind of plotline that was going on in that one is just more my speed. It just had a little bit more intrigue, and I liked Scarlet as a main character. I think that she was very fascinating and very closed off to us in certain ways. Legendary, we actually follow a different character, and I didn't love being from their perspective. I did end up liking it in the end, but I did prefer Scarlet as a main character. And Legendary just kind of randomly included very different kinds of magic and a different sort of plot line. It just didn't feel cohesive. I feel like a lot of the things that were mentioned in Legendary should have already been mentioned in Caraval if this is what the story was going to be about. And for that reason, I didn't rate it as highly as Caraval, but I am excited to see how Finale goes because I do feel like it's going to be a mix of the two main characters, and maybe I'll like it better because of that. So the next book that I have to haul for you today is Witchwood by Tahada Mafi. This I loved this book. I loved this book and I loved Furthermore. I really highly recommend them. They are very whimsical, very nonsensical, but also very serious. They both discuss extremely serious topics in them, and I just really appreciate Tahada Mafi in the way that she wrote them. In this one we follow Layli, who is a morticier of Witchwood, and morticiers basically are how the dead move on in this world. They have to go to a morticier who has the power to help soothe their skins and their souls and move them on to the next life. But Layli has fallen on hard times, and when she is left absolutely alone to this burden of magically taking souls to another life, she finds that she might not be able to keep up, and no one really cares. But if Layli cannot do her job, then the town of Witchwood is in more danger than they know, and when they keep putting her down and not even trying to help her, a friend from Furthermore has to come in and try and show Layli that she has been missing out on more than just happiness. It's just a very pleasant story. I feel like that doesn't even begin to describe it. It's just very beautiful. You don't technically have to read Furthermore before this one, but it definitely makes it a lot better, and it's just very magical, and I love the friendships in this. I feel like everyone just loves each other so much, and they try so hard to help Layli and help Layli become herself again, and it's just I don't know, I get emotional talking about it. It's just a very good series. I highly recommend it. Okay, so this next section is gonna be contemporaries because I feel like that's a good split up. So the first one that I have to show you is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This is actually the edition that I got in my Ignite English box. I do have a different edition of Jane Eyre, but I am excited about this one because it's very cute and it's very pocket sized, so it's easy to travel with if I did want to travel with it. I am very intrigued by Jane Eyre. I want to read more classics eventually, so it's cool that I have this option, but I don't know much about it, so I'm not really gonna dwell. Next is Again But Better by Christine Riccio. I'm so excited about this book. This is obviously Christine Riccio's debut novel. She is a booktuber at Poland Bananas Books, and I've been watching her journey with this from the very start, from episode 1 of her writing vlogs, and I've been just so invested and curious to see what it is that she's been writing this entire time. I just feel like we were all along for the ride if we watched her videos, and it's really cool that it's finally like in our hands. I am just slightly nervous because I did see Chelsea Dolling talk about this and mention that Shane, our main character, is kind of going after a taken man, and she's trying to convince this guy that's in a relationship to be with her instead. And I'm not the biggest fan of that, you know, in general. By rule, I normally don't like any sort of cheating or any suggestion of cheating, so I'm curious to see how it's done. I do think though that the rest of the book is going to be lovely, so I'm definitely gonna give it a shot, and hopefully I actually love this even more than I think I will. Basically, Shane feels as though she has done college all wrong. Even though she had perfect grades and her parents were happy and everything went really well, she feels that she missed out on the core college experience. So she goes to London, where she had studied abroad once upon a time, to try and re-experience the things that she thinks that she should have in college and wants to do it again, but better. I'm really excited. I'm very happy for Christine for having made a book and for having gotten to that point in her life. That's amazing. So either way, whether I like it or not, this is still a really cool success. Next up is Symptoms of a Heartbreak by Sona Charipotra. I kind of already talked about this in my Book of the Month unboxing, so I'm not really going to mention it again. I'll just link that video. I am really excited to read this. I did kind of try and decide to do something a little bit different. I am a Book of the Month affiliate, so if you would like to follow my link down below to get your first subscription box, then you definitely can, and I would really appreciate it. I did try and do something a little different with my Book of the Month subscription. Since I am going to be getting a new book every single month, I wanted to try and get books that maybe I wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and obviously for me, contemporary definitely falls into that category. This isn't always going to be the case. There's definitely going to be some months where I'm just so excited about a book that I'm going to just get the one that I want the most. But with this one specifically, I knew that Symptoms of a Heartbreak wasn't even something I'd really heard about, and it just sounded so sweet and so cute, and it's just like the perfect opportunity to meet a new book that I probably wouldn't have grabbed otherwise. And I think it's a really cool program. I'm not going to talk too much about it because you can follow the link to see the other video, but yeah. Check it out if you want to. I'm so excited about this next book, and that is gonna be Heretics Anonymous by Katie Henry. I wanted this book the moment that Emma Books actually talked about it in her video when she read it like over a year ago. It sounds kind of like right up my alley. It's an intriguing concept. We follow Michael, who is an atheist, and he is attending a Catholic school, and he really just doesn't feel as though he's ever gonna fit in, as though he's ever gonna find friends. But when a girl stands up to their teacher and has a little bit of a disagreement with them, he feels as though he finally found a fellow like-minded atheist. But lo and behold, she is not an atheist, but she wants to become a priest. And in the Catholic religion, women can't be priests, so that is kind of controversial in their school. But she still takes him around and introduces him to a little group of misfits, of people that just don't feel as though they fit into this school for one reason or another. And even though none of them are exactly like him, he does find like-minded individuals and ends up falling into an unlikely group. It's sort of a little bit of a Breakfast Club vibe, and I'm just so excited to see how it's done. I did go to Catholic school when I was younger, and it's just gonna be very interesting to see how it's written about. Okay, sorry if I look different and if the lighting's different. My camera battery died and I had to wait for it to recharge, so here we are. I had just finished talking about Heretics Anonymous, so let's move on to Life of Pi by Jan Martel. So this book I actually got in the Ignite English box for this last month. I'll try and link that above or below somewhere as well. Originally, I wasn't really excited that I'd gotten it because I had seen the movie and I didn't love the movie, but a ton of you guys told me that it's definitely worth the read, that it's amazing, that it's better than the movie. So I'm definitely gonna keep it around just for a little, see how I feel about it in a while. Basically, Life of Pi follows Pi and a bunch of animals after a shipwreck, and they are the only ones left alive and left on a lifeboat. These animals include like a zebra, a hyena, a tiger. It's just them trying to survive as they float around in the Pacific Ocean. I guess we'll see how I end up feeling about it. Next up is An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. I'm actually really excited about this. I was actually sent this copy by the publisher, and basically it is a contemporary story, but it's more my speed. I feel like there's definitely some sci-fi elements going on. This story starts with April, who is walking along on the streets of New York, and she sees this amazing statue that she had never seen before, and she takes a video of it and uploads it to YouTube. And she wakes up to find that her video had gone viral and that these statues, or these Carls as they're calling them, have appeared all around the world just overnight in different major cities. So as she deals with her new social media fame, she also is trying to figure out what exactly these Carls want from them and what they mean. So I'm excited just because it definitely has to do with someone more of my age group. She's 23, which is cool. I feel like I've never really read a book from the perspective of a 23-year-old. Also, it's interesting just to see how she deals with like the whole social media hype, the fame, the drama. I guess it's just something that I feel like maybe in the end I'll end up kind of relating to, just to see how she deals with social media, how she deals with being a YouTuber. And after that, I have another book that's kind of on the same route, and that is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. Obviously, John Green is Hank Green's brother. This was actually a book that I never really had much interest in getting, although although I loved John Green and I loved Fault in Our Stars and I loved Looking for Alaska, I just felt like my John Green time was over, you know? And I know that everyone loved Turtles All the Way Down. I feel like I've seen so many positive reviews about this, and I actually ended up finding it on Book Outlet for a decent price, so I was like, maybe my John Green phase isn't over. And it's cool because this is actually a signed copy, so I didn't even know that going into it. But I don't know much about Turtles All the Way Down. I know that it has, I think, something to do with OCD. I think our main character, Aza, deals with it in some way or another, but mostly I believe it's just her and her best friend trying to figure out this mystery about a millionaire or a billionaire or something like that. So it sounds like it's like a mystery, but also it's more about Aza and like her struggles in dealing with her overactive mind. See how tall this pile can get before everything just comes tumbling to the ground. Next is a book that I've already read, and that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This was Casey McQuiston's debut novel, and I really enjoyed it. I actually give it 4 stars. It's very cute, but it wasn't perfect, which is why, you know, not a 5-star. This follows Alex, who is the son of the President of the United States, and he is dealing with all of the obligations that come along with that, while also hating on Henry, the Prince of England. But when his hate kind of turns into more and an altercation between the two appears in tabloids, there is some damage to be dealt with, and the president's team decides to actually send him over to Henry and to have a fake friendship bloom between the two. And in that time, Alex learns that maybe Henry isn't all that bad. I really enjoyed the story. I feel like where this actually fell flat for me was the writing style. I feel like Casey McQuiston's timing could have been better, and I definitely got confused at certain points, but overall I really liked her characters that she created, and other than the fact that sometimes they just kind of acted out of character, I didn't really mind. Next up is Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. So I picked this book up actually right after I watched Crazy Rich Asians, the movie adaptation. I fell in love with the movie. It was just so cute. It was so perfect. I loved the comedy in it, and I liked the romance, and I loved the bouginess of everything. Basically, Rachel is just a regular run-of-the-mill girl, and she is dating her boyfriend, who she hopes to one day marry, Nicholas, and he decides to take her to Singapore to meet his family. And it's when she's meeting his family that she learns a few things. She learns that Nicholas isn't as humble as he may seem, and that she is now dating the world's most eligible bachelor because he is an heir to a $1 million or $1 billion empire. I'm excited though. I know that the book itself has a lot more storylines to follow. There's a lot more characters going on, and I'm excited about that just because I feel like even though the movie did perfect, I wanted more. So I think that's it for all like my normal contemporary books. So the next category is gonna be poetry. Let's talk about these two first, and that's gonna be The Princess Saves Herself in this one and The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one, both by Amanda Lovelace. I have read this one, haven't read this one. This one, it was good. It was just like not maybe what I wanted out of it. Do like the poetry overall. I feel like there was definitely more than half of the poems that I actually really liked, that I liked the way they were done, but I just felt so sad reading the first 2 parts and very shocked in some instances, and I think that's definitely on me. I just didn't know really what I was getting myself into. I didn't expect to be like happy or like uplifted in any way by this because it definitely seemed like it was gonna be a harder story to hear, but it was even harder than I actually had assumed it would be. And then by the end, I really liked the last part of this poetry collection, but the very last like few pages were just random poems that I felt didn't really flow with the rest of the story that she had been saying, and that were just kind of like random and a little like social justice-y, but without a point, if that makes sense. I don't mind like a poem that's gonna be more on like the social justice warrior kind of side of things, but in this one it almost felt like a cop-out, like yeah, I'm relatable, you know? And that's definitely maybe just me being cynical, because I know that a ton of people actually loved this book, so don't take my word completely for it. It is a fast read, so you might as well try it out if you're even the least bit interested in it. I am hoping though that I have a better experience with The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one. I don't know. I know a lot of people say they actually like this one one way less than the other one, so I'm curious to see where I lie on that. But I almost feel like because I'm already not normal and didn't like the first one, maybe I'll actually be not normal again and like the second one, you know? So I'm excited to see, because I've been really enjoying poetry. And then I have Whiskey Words and a Shovel. I tried to take off the sticker in this one, but it's still dirty. And this is by R.H. Sin. R.H. Sin is actually a poetry author that I've been dying to get into. I feel like I'm just gonna love their work, and I don't know what it is about it. They have tons of poetry collections, tons of different little books, and they all look just so sweet and cute, and when I saw this one for a really good price, I just couldn't pass up on it. So I'm really excited. I actually feel like this is gonna be something that I enjoy a ton, but I don't really know much about it. And the last poetry collection that I bought was The Sweetest Kind of Poison by Katie Wismer. I briefly talked about this in a few videos already, but Katie Wismer is a booktuber, and she actually self-published this poetry collection, and I've loved watching her videos for a really long time, and since I am just trying to get a little bit more into poetry, I definitely wanted to get hers. I just feel like I'm gonna really love it. The tagline on the back is, "The stories never tell you what to do when the knight who rescues you turns out to be more dangerous than the dragon he saved you from." And that just sounds intense and badass, and I'm just really excited to hop in and see how she did and how she wrote it, because I feel like I'm really gonna enjoy it. Poetry is really hard to talk about in hauls, because like, what are you gonna do? Just like show the thing and be like, it's cool, because there's not like a plot or anything, you know? And this one kind of doesn't fit anywhere, so I'm just gonna put it right here, and that is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, and this is the illustrated version by Camille Rose Garcia. I've been wanting to get my hands on this for years. It is just such a cool art style, so like gothic and intriguing, and I love the colors, and just the art style in general is something I really enjoy. And there's a few of these actually, and I think I want to get like the whole collection. It was actually a really good price on Book Outlet, so I figured why not. I do already have a copy of Alice's, don't eat my hair please, of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, but I'm really happy that I got this one as well, because I feel like this is the one that I'm gonna want to read. Just look how creepy. It's just like creepy but good. And I feel like there's not much that I need to say about this book. I feel like everyone has seen the Disney adaptation at this point. This next category is gonna be like urban fantasy-ish, so don't quote me on these genres. I'm just kind of like pairing books into similar situations, but like not exactly, you know what I mean? So first up we have In an Absent Dream by Sheena Maguire. I am so excited to finally have this. I have been wanting to get this ever since I finished Beneath the Sugar Sky, but like it wasn't out yet until this year in January, and I honestly thought I was gonna buy it right away, and then I didn't, which was shocking. And then I kept waiting on it, and then I saw it on Book Outlet, and I was like, ooh, I'm definitely gonna get it now. And then I went back the next day and it wasn't on Book Outlet anymore, so I was bummed. And this actually sparked an entire haul, because like last week I went on Book Outlet and they had a single copy of this, like just randomly, and I put it in my cart and just bought everything else that was in my cart, and I'm really excited because I've just loved Sheena Maguire's work. I love the Wayward Children series. I think it's just such an interesting concept. This has to do with portal worlds, and just like it follows different kids that have come back from their portal worlds and are having difficulty adjusting back to the real world, and they stay in the Wayward Miss something's home for wayward children. I forget what it is exactly, but it's just so amazing because they all are so interesting. The first book was just really cool, and every book since then has just been following each character along in their portal world basically, and this one specifically is following Lundy, and Lundy was such an intriguing character to get to know in the first book because she is a very wise person stuck in a very young body, and it's just fun. And I know that she has like a goblin market world basically, and you have to stay under the age of 12, and she's just intelligent and analytical, and I just know this one's gonna be amazing because I've loved all the other ones, so it's not really gonna be a surprise if this one's amazing. It's gonna be more of a surprise if it's not amazing, you know? This one, I'm not really sure what category to put it into, but we're just gonna go with it, and it's Fire and Flood by Victoria Scott. I'm so hyped to read this. This is actually a book that was recommended to me by Kevin from The Irish Reader. It was he had to recommend me a book for my notes, and it's this one, but I just can't wait. It's been pitched to me as Pokemon meets Hunger Games, and both of those things are things that I love, so I just know this is gonna be a really amazing read. In this, we follow Tella, who is trying desperately to keep up with her brother's illness. He is deathly sick. She doesn't really know what to do about it until she is asked to participate in a dangerous and deadly race called the Brimstone Bleed. It's an insane race that takes place over 4 different kinds of terrains, and honestly, many people will die trying to get through it, but the winner gets the cure. The only issue is every single person that's racing in this wants the cure. So how far is Tella willing to go to save her brother? It's just gonna be, I just know it's gonna be so good. Honestly, Kevin and I have really similar reading tastes, so if this is one of his favorite books, it's probably gonna be one of my favorite books at the end. I don't make the rules. Next up is one I actually don't know much about at all, and that is gonna be The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab. I love V.E. Schwab. I've loved every single thing that I've ever read from her, so when she was coming out with The Near Witch, I just knew I had to get my hands on it right away, but I don't know anything about this. I just know I like V.E. Schwab. Look how pretty. It says, "The Near Witch is only an old story told to frighten children. If the wind calls at night, you must not listen. The wind is lonely and always looking for company. There are no strangers in the town of Near." That's really all I'm gonna talk about this. Guys, there's so many books to talk about. I'm not gonna talk about this one, but look down below. Next up is The Wicked Fox by Kat Cho, and it is the beautiful Fairy Loot edition. I am so excited to read this. I plan to read it this month, and if I don't read it this month, I'm gonna just cry a lot. This story is set in Seoul, Korea, and we follow Mi-young, who is a gumiho, and a gumiho is a 9-tailed fox who survives by eating the souls of men. And she is a little bit better than most gumihos. She doesn't just kill to kill, she tries and kills the bad people. So when she stumbles upon a goblin threatening a young boy, she saves him at the risk of also exposing herself as a 9-tailed fox. And in this altercation, she actually loses her fox bead, which is basically her gumiho's soul. And so when her and Ji-hoon meet again the next day, she ends up being in a dangerous situation where she has to decide whether to save her own soul or to save this boy's life. It just sounds like it's gonna be so dramatic, so romantic. It's set in Seoul, it's gonna be beautiful, and I love the mythology aspect that's gonna be part of this. Next up, I have 1,000 Beginnings and Endings, edited by Ellen O and Elsie Chapman. I am so excited to haul this for you guys. It was absolutely incredible. I actually read this for the Asianathon that was going on, hosted by Read with Cindy. This was the group book, and it is just an anthology of Asian myths and proverbs, and Chala, don't eat that. I absolutely loved it. There were so many amazing stories in here with so many different Asian mythologies being pulled from, and I just appreciated it a lot. It wasn't perfect though, because there were definitely a few stories that let me down, but the thing is the last tale has to do with kitsune, and I absolutely love the myth of the kitsune. It's why I feel like I'm gonna like Wicked Fox so much, because even though like a gumiho isn't a kitsune, it's like similar in my brain, you know? And the way that that story ended, the way that that story was told, it gave me chills. It was absolutely incredible. So I actually really enjoyed this. This was the first anthology I've ever read, but it definitely made me want to read more, so that's good. This next book was actually sent to me, and I already did like a whole video on it. I will link it somewhere for you guys to watch if you want to, but it is The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg. This is such a fascinating book, guys. The Kingdom is a super interesting story that is set in a sort of futuristic Disney that meets Westworld, because the kingdom is unlike any other. There are bioengineered animals and there are bioengineered princesses, and these princesses are really the star of the show, but the biggest issue being that they have to do whatever it is that makes the guest happy, because happily ever after isn't just a promise but a rule. It's a very interesting story that takes on actually a lot of really dark topics, a lot of like animal abuse and environmental issues, while also dealing with what is really right. You made these people to feel like they were people themselves, but then you're just allowed to tell them everything that they're supposed to do, even if it's not exactly moral. It discusses a lot of whether being a human is what really makes you a human, or if what's really in your heart makes you a human. And it's actually a super fascinating story because it's told in a very mysterious aspect, because our main character, Anna, is on trial for murdering the man she loves, a human named Owen. And we get to see the story in snippets of flashbacks and just interviews. It was well done. I really, really enjoyed this. I highly recommend it. Next we have The Devil's Thief by Lisa Maxwell. This is the second book in the Last Magician series. I'm really not sure how many books are going to be in it. I loved The Last Magician when I read it last year. It's such a cool story that takes place in like 1900s New York, and it has time travel, and the time travel's done really, I don't know if I want to say well, but it's a very interesting concept. And there are people that have specific powers in here. The magic system is really cool. The magic types that we get to see are unlike anything that we really get to see normally. And I just had a really good time with it, and it's also sort of like a heist kind of situation, so I really appreciated that. And Devil's Thief is thick though. I'm excited to get to it. I got it a while ago though, and I still haven't gotten to it, so I'm kind of annoyed, but I know I will soon because I really enjoyed it. The first one. And we have Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray. This is the third book in the Diviners series. I've been loving the Diviners. This is another story that's actually set in like 1900s or like early 1900s in New York. It's also actually has to do with people having specific magic powers, and they're really cool. That's actually kind of funny. I didn't plan that, but they're similar concepts. It's sort of like if you would like The Last Magician, you would probably like The Diviners. But there is just so much like fun 20s slang. There are flappers. I don't know what Before the Devil Breaks You is gonna be about, but the first two books followed different mysteries in each one, and the second book was just so much darker than the first one, and I loved it so much more for that. It was just creepy, and it had to do with like dreams and nightmares and sort of like a monster. It was just so cool. And the first one also had to do with like murders and the murderer not really being entirely human. It was just, I'm very, very interested to see what Before the Devil Breaks You is about, because just the way that everything's been done and like the kind of powers that we get to see is definitely my favorite part. I'm gonna be saving this one for October though, because that's how I've been reading every single one. I read The Diviners 2 Octobers ago, I read Layer of Dreams last October, and then I'm gonna read Before the Devil Breaks You this October. So it's like my creepy read of the year. It's not even that creepy, it's actually pretty cute. And the audiobooks for those are phenomenal. Next up, we have Aurora Rising by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This book I've already read. It was absolutely amazing. There was just jokes throughout the entire book, and I really loved the squad that we were given. We follow Tyler, who is supposed to be the best of his class, who is the best of his class, and who's supposed to get the top picks of every single person to make his squad in his graduation. But when an unlikely situation happens and he has to actually go out and save a girl from cryosleep in interdimensional space, he ends up coming back too late to pick his own squad and ends up with the rejects. And our rejects are amazing. We just get to know so much about them, and that even though they're supposed to be the worst that the Academy has to offer, they work together so well to make the best squad that the Academy probably would have ever had. And it's just like such a cute like friends being family situation, but there's an interesting mystery factor because Ari, our girl that was in cryosleep for over 200 years in interdimensional space, is probably gonna be the catalyst of a huge war that's been millennia in the making. And I also have Obsidian by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the last book in the Illuminae Files trilogy. I'm excited to get to this. I loved Gemina. I'm not 100% sure what Obsidian is gonna follow. Really the basics of what I know is that everyone that's been in the previous two books are gonna finally meet up, I think, and be together. I think that's what's gonna happen in this one. And because the first one followed Katie and Ezra as they are running away from their planet that has been attacked by Bitech on a spaceship called the Hypatia, and a lot goes down in that book. A lot. But in Gemina, we follow two different characters, Hannah and Nick, as they're on the space station Heimdall that also ends up being attacked by Bitech. So you can imagine that this one's probably gonna have to do something with Bitech. It's the end of the trials because this is told in sort of like testimonies and flashbacks and video footage and things like that. So you can assume that it's gonna be the end and figuring out whether Bitech is gonna, you know, have to do some penance for everything that they've done in the previous two books. But I'm excited because all the characters that we've met so far have just been so interesting, and it's gonna be so much fun to actually see them connect and be all together because they're so used to kind of being like the alphas themselves that it'll be fun to have like a group of alphas, I guess. Next we have This Cruel Design by Emily Savada. This is the second book in the Mortal Coil series. The Mortal Coil was something I read earlier this year and really enjoyed. It is sort of like a dystopian actually, set in a world where a plague has really taken over humanity. And Kat, our main character, has been left to fend for herself after her father was taken away to try and find a cure for this plague. But when a mysterious man comes to her door and says that her father's dead and she is the only key to figuring out what the cure is, her life takes an even bigger turn for the worse because she wasn't really doing all that well to begin with on her own. It's just really fast paced and it's kind of like that cheesy old school YA that I've kind of been missing in my life, but it's also really scientific in nature and interesting, and the concept itself is intriguing, and I appreciate the duality of it, I guess, the difficultness of the science, but also the fun of the young adult genre from like 2010. So I've been having a really good time and I'm sure that This Cruel Design is also going to be just as good. Next we have Archenemies by Marissa Meyer. This is the second book in the Renegades series. I loved the Renegades when I read it this year. It was absolutely phenomenal and I'm just so excited to get to Archenemies. I'm so excited to see where our characters are at and if their secrets can stay hidden, because obviously in this world filled with prodigies who are humans with superpowers, following Nova, who is an anarchist, which is sort of like a supervillain, and as she befriends Adrian, who is a renegade who is definitely a superhero. And she is in his squad without him actually knowing that she is a spy for the anarchists. But he has his own secrets, and it's very interesting to see where it's gonna go in this one, because the plot twist at the end of Renegades, I keep talking about it, but guys, did you see it coming? I didn't see it coming. So I can't wait to read Archenemies. I'm definitely gonna do this as soon as possible and get ready for when Supernova comes out later on this year. We're on the last book, guys, thank God. Okay, the last book that I have to haul for you guys today is Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. I already own this, but I wanted to get the hardcover to match my other hardcover copies. I don't want to talk much about this. You guys have heard this summary so many times from me, so I'm definitely just gonna link it down below for you guys. All you have to know is that Red Rising as a trilogy is one of my favorite trilogies, one of my favorite series of all time, and it is just so incredible. Such a good sci-fi, such a good world, so brutal and gory and hard to read, but so interesting. So I don't have enough good things to say about this, and you guys already know that, so we'll just not talk about it. Oh my god, there's one more book. The last book that was hiding under my notes page is Specials by Scott Westerfeld. This is another book that I actually already owned, but I owned in the old covers and I wanted the new covers, so I've just been getting them as I find them for cheap. This is the third book in the Uglies trilogy. It is just a dystopian world that everyone has a place. Everyone is in their place and everyone is like genetically modified to stay in their place. And it's very interesting. This is actually one of my all-time favorite dystopians ever. I definitely want to do a reread of it eventually. I'm just glad I got the pretty white version. Okay, that's it. That's all 41 books, and I hope to never do a haul this big ever again. Ever. Because, oh my god, that was difficult. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I don't want to talk anymore, but I love you so much. Bye-bye!